how do you know when you show up to your new campground or anchorage or marina that you're going to be able to get online and do what you need to do? We're going to share some tips about planning your travels around connectivity. Hi there, I'm Cherie with the Mobile Internet Resource Center, and that's my partner Chris back there getting some work done. And part of planning your travels, of course, you want to pick out the places you're going. You want to make sure it's got the amenities that you want. Maybe how is the bathhouse? How is the tranquility and the privacy of the sites? Does it have full hookups? Those are all important parts of picking out where you want to go. But for a lot of us that are traveling and needing to keep online, whether it's for work, remote learning, entertainment, or just surfing and figuring out where we're going next, planning your travels around connectivity is an important part of that. And we're going to share some tips and tools with you that we use to plan our travels to make sure when we show up, we're going to be able to get online somehow. And the first, especially if you are depending on cellular data to get online, is checking your carrier's coverage maps. Now, of course, each carrier has their maps online that you can go to and look to see if where you're heading, they claim to have coverage. Now, keep in mind, the carrier's maps are in part marketing, but they are based upon calculations that they have taken based upon where they have installed towers and where they have signal aimed to, where they are predicting you'll be able to get signal. Their coverage maps don't tend to indicate the strength of signal or the data speeds that you're going to get. It's just basically a binary, yes or no. Is there signal there? And a lot of things can play into whether or not you can actually utilize that signal. Your own device, is it modern? Does it cover all of the frequency bands that your carrier has? Are you using any signal enhancing like antennas or boosters? And is there terrain around that isn't accounted for in their calculations, like mountains and hills and slopes and ravines, or big rocks or big buildings next to your RV or boat that might impact the actual signal and performance that you get? So keep those things in mind, but the coverage maps are a good place to start to see if your carrier even claims there's coverage. And we typically find if they do, and you have modern devices and you have signal enhancing gear on board, you can usually eke something out. Now, checking the carrier's coverage maps requires you to go to their websites, navigate to their maps, and then check it out. But if you're like us, you probably travel with more than one carrier because you're smart and you have redundancy in your mobile internet setup and know that at any particular location, one might perform better than the other. So we wrote an app to make that easier. It's called Coverage. It's available for Android and iOS, and it takes those carriers' coverage maps, some on your device, and then you can create your own personal coverage map with the carriers that you travel with. And because they're on your device, if you don't have coverage, you can actually see where you need to go next to find some signal, which can be super handy in your travels and planning your travels around your personal arsenal of carriers that you travel with. Next up.
Now, in addition to the carrier coverage maps, there's another type of map that you can check that could help you determine whether you're going to find decent performance where you're going. And these are the crowdsourced coverage maps, which instead of the carrier's forecasts, these are actual user reports of the speed at various locations. And there are apps like OpenSignal and a RootMetrics coverage map that people run on their phones, and as they travel around, it takes automated samples and speed tests and stuff as they travel about and tries to fill in a coverage map that gives you actual real-world user-generated reports, which sounds great, but the catch is those reports have to be, somebody's phone has to have been where you are running that app to have generated the maps. So what you often end up with are lots of sporadic dots popped around the various places, or things that look like snail trails along major freeways and major thoroughfares, but show absolutely no coverage, either positive or negative, in a lot of the places that you actually might want to travel. So it's good to scope out an area, and you might be able to get some real sense for, are there fast speeds or slow speeds being recorded in by Verizon, by AT&T, by T-Mobile in that area. But very likely, a lot of the places, there will be no reports one way or the other, And the other catch is sometimes these reports can be very, very out of date, and you really don't have an easy way to, at a glance, to tell whether somebody drove through 6 months ago or a year ago, and that's where that report was logged onto the map. Or were they driving through with a low-end phone? And if you've got a new modern hotspot or cellular device, or a booster at work or something like that, your experience might be completely different. So it's a good way to kind of ground yourself, maybe scope out a little bit, but not nearly as useful as you would hope by the concept. Now, one other thing, if you really want to do your homework for a particular area that you can do, is you could try to look up what actual cell towers are in the area. And in the United States, there is no master cell tower database. The carriers do not provide this information, but there are some crowdsourced reported sites like Cellmapper that will let people put cell towers on the map, record the bands and the signals that they saw from that, and the Cellmapper actually does a pretty good job of mapping out where those particular towers might have coverage. So if you're going to a particular rural area and you're going to be trying to focus on aiming a directional antenna, doing some research in that area on Cellmapper to determine where is the physical tower that covers your carrier going to be located, or where are there several options nearby that you might want to try aim to. Because
some of the best feedback that you might get is from other RVers and boaters who have been to the location you want to go to before and seeing what their experience has been with connectivity. And a lot of the review sites either have integrated in reports for cellular signal and Wi-Fi access at the campground or marina, or a lot of other travelers like yourself are interested in the cellular data or internet performance at a location, and they leave comments in their reviews. So do check out the review sites. One that we particularly love for RVing is called Campendium, and they actually prompt their reviewers to leave a signal report for each of the carriers that are there. But of course, signal, what someone says is 2 bars or 3 bars. Remember, those are arbitrary readings. It really comes down to performance and reliability at a location, and having enough bandwidth to get done what you need to get done. So do also read some of the recent reviews and see if people have noted, hey, I was able to stream video here, or I was able to do Zoom calls. That can be important clues as to what you can expect to accomplish at a particular location. And also keep in mind, just because someone says, hey, there's great Verizon at Rainbow Springs State Park, doesn't mean that their version of great is your version of great. It all depends upon what you need to accomplish, and you also need to keep in mind what your equipment is. Are you using modern devices, boosters, antennas, and what the person who is leaving that report was using? Those things can impact greatly the experience that you'll get, as well as what time of year or even time of day they are reporting on. Because in some locations that are more seasonal and popular, there can be massive network congestion in an area. Like traveling in Florida or Arizona in the winter, you get lots of reports of people having network congestion, slower speeds, just because there's more people than the towers were built for trying to utilize that signal that's out there. And other times of the year, that same performance may be much greater than it is during the peak area time for an area. So keep that in mind. That can apply on weekends and holidays and big events that are going on in a particular area. So those are some tips that will hopefully help you plan your travels better around connectivity. Check those coverage maps, check crowdsourced resources, and check review sites. And remember that no one of those is going to give you a full picture, and even all 3 together may not give you the full picture of what you will experience when you get to your site at that time of year, or that particular campsite that you're in, or that particular anchorage that you're at. So this stuff is finicky, and a lot of things can play a role in the actual internet performance that you get at a particular location. And that's why we preach redundancy, is having multiple options to try. That might be multiple cellular carriers. It might be multiple different antennas options to try with and without your booster. All of these things can play a role in the actual performance and experience that you get when you get to a location. And remember, things happen. A tower can go down. There can be maintenance going on. There's lots of things that can happen that impact your performance. So be sure to know your equipment and have redundancy in your arsenal if mobile internet is important to you. And that's what we focus on. So please do head on over to the Mobile Internet Resource Center, and you will find a ton of more content to help you decide what your ideal mobile internet setup is. And of course, this is all made possible by our mobile internet aficionados, our premium members that helps us create this content and keep it updated. And for that, they get a bunch of additional perks, in-depth guides, classrooms, and interactive guidance with our staff. So may the bandwidth be with you in your next trip, and may you keep connected as you wish. These videos are brought to you by our premium members, our mobile internet aficionados. They make it possible for us to track this news and create these videos. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe to our channel, or better yet, consider becoming a member yourself.